Hey family, welcome back to yet another edition of the Lenovo ThinkPad Solutions, and it's always a pleasure having you here onto this channel. And in this video we are going to be looking at reassembly and disassembly of this Lenovo ThinkPad T470s laptop, and we are going to be focusing on replacing the RAM, hard drive, storage unit, the keyboard, the bezels, anything entailed in the video. So just look through with me to the video as we disassemble and reassemble this laptop. Let's break it down, dissect, and have to know what it has inside it. Lenovo ThinkPad Solutions to Excellency. Let's dig into the video right now. So first things first, we need to shut down completely the laptop, and amongst the tools that we are going to be using, we're going to use our Phillips screwdriver and this to act as our pressure tool. That's all we're going to be using for now. So let's start right away by powering off the laptop, and after power pressing we can always first get off the batteries. And the batteries, remember, they are connected inside, so we need to first unscrew these 5 screws. And now starting right away, that is screw number 1. We go to screw number 2 here. We go to screw number 3, which is here. Screw number 4, and then screw number 5. So for the keyboard, in case we want to remove it, we have to first unlock. It has a lock here that we need to unlock to the keyboard unlocked side. So we unlock that one also, and then we get our pressure tool. Press it in, and then move it gently to have it opened. Here at the edges. So that is our bottom case. We've removed it. Then now we need to focus on first we need to focus on removing the battery. And remember, we have 2 batteries here. We have this battery and this battery. And for the battery, we first start by removing this one. It has 2 screws here. Get screw number 2 also out. Then it has this sealing tape that we need to remove as we remove the battery. So this is our battery number 1. We can put it aside. In case you want to replace, you can always just replace it by removing it and putting a new one. So we go to the second one, which has screw number 1, screw number 2, and screw number 3 here. Remove it also with the sealing tape, the black sealing tape. This is our battery. And it's a rechargeable Li-ion battery, which has 3 cells in it, 3 to 4 cells inside. So once we are done with that, we can then now focus on the keyboard. We can first cover it up and then go to the keyboard side. For the keyboard, it has this lock here that you need to first push behind, and also this side, push behind, push behind. Now you're opening up space so that you can see the inner screws that attach the keyboard to the keyboard bezel. And the 5 smaller screws that attach the keyboard to the keyboard bezel. And this is screw number 1, screw number 2, screw number 3, screw number 4, and screw number 5. So they are the ones that when you open the keyboard layer, you are able to see those screws that you have to unscrew. Make it smaller. Phillips screwdriver. These ones need a smaller screwdriver to get them off, or rather out. I'll start with this one. Second one, the third one, and then the fourth one, then we go to the fifth one. So once we are done, we can then flip. We can then gently. Oh, there is another key. There is another screw here. Actually, there are 6, not 5. There are 6. There's another one there. So once we are done, we then flip open, then pull it out this keyboard, and then flip it sideways like this. Then disconnect the keyboard from the keyboard bezel connector. And get it out like this. So once that is done, we can now then focus on the other side. So that's how you can replace the keyboard. In case you want to replace, you can always replace it that way. So we now focus on the memory module. We'll focus on the memory module, which is here. We'll disconnect it off. I'll put it aside. Then we have the MS solid state drive, which is here. This one is the one. In case you want to replace it, you can always just unscrew this, and it's an M2 solid state drive SSD, which is here. And for this case, this is a 512 GB RAM space size, and this is how it's appearing, so we can put it aside as well. So once that is done, we also focus on the wireless card. So we have two. We have one which is the wireless card, the one, and then we have one for the LAN. So these are two cards that are embedded here. So we need to also just disconnect both of them. And for this case, we start with the LAN card, which is the small one, the LAN wireless card, which is the small one here. And I'll get it out just like that. Put it aside. Then go to the bigger one. First start by disconnecting the cable, the cables that connect to it, and then the screws. So once that is done, we'll then focus on other parts. Once that is done, we can then focus on the coin cell battery, which is this one connected to the motherboard. It's a lithium battery, the coin cell battery. Disconnect it off the motherboard. Then we have the speaker assembly. We have the speaker assembly. We have these stereo dioid speakers. They're always connected here. There are two, but they share a cable running from this and shared to this other side. So there are two speakers that we need to disconnect right away. and get them off. So have them also removed. So in case you want to replace the speakers, you can always get them out like this. It's a complete connection which runs and connects them here just like this. So these are the speakers. These are the speakers. In case you want to replace them, you can always just replace them the way we have them. So we can put aside the speakers and let's proceed. So we need to focus now on disconnecting the fan and the processor. So we first disconnect the fan. Now this fan is connected directly to the cooling pipes. So we disconnect and screw removing the processor. So once that is done, we can remove. This is the cooling system. So in case you want to replace, you can always just remove that. But remember, there is always this thermo cooling paste that you're supposed to always attach to the processor, or rather the board, before replacement. So I'll put that aside. Once we are done with that, we can then focus on disconnecting these other joints. We can focus on disconnecting this side. We have the power cord here, or rather the power point, connection point, which we need to first also disconnect of the motherboard. Then we have a connector here connecting the USB onto the motherboard, the USB port onto the motherboard. We can also disconnect that. Then we have this the display connecting the LCD. We can also get it off just like that. Once we disconnect that, we can have access to the board. We go to the next one, also disconnect it off the board. Once we are done, we can then still disconnect this other camera cable just like that. So once we are done, we can then start working on the motherboard. We need to get off the card reader connection of the motherboard, and we can gently open it up and first unlock, then remove. Pull it out gently of the motherboard. Then we have this touchpad connector connecting onto the motherboard. We can also remove it. Then we have the fingerprint connector connecting onto the motherboard. That's the FRP. Sorry, the FPR. We can also disconnect it off the motherboard. Then thoroughly check whether we have all the connection points disconnected. Now once that is done, we can then start unscrewing the motherboard. Screw number 2, screw number 3, screw number 4, screw number 5 here, screw number 5, screw number 6 here, screw number 6, check through whether all the screws have been removed. Need to confirm that there is no standing screw. Oops, there is this other screw which connects to the battery. Where it's stuck. There was some hard glue that was from the bottom here. This is the hard glue that was trying to make it a bit hard to remove, to get off. So this is our motherboard and this is how it appears. In case you want to replace, you can always replace this. So in this case, we need to replace this one as well. In our case, we need to clean it up, ensuring that there is no dirt. And also performing routine maintenance and system check for the laptop. So I'll clean it up. I'll get a clean towel and clean off the dust. So in case you want to also replace the touchpad, you can always, it has 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. You can always just unscrew this and get the touchpad replaced. get the trackpad replaced. Unscrew all the 4 screws, and you have it here. If you want to replace, you can always just disconnect it and replace it just like this. Now remember, it has a cable. It has a connection cable here which has some glue. So for our case, we're not replacing this because it's okay, but in case you want to replace, you can always just disconnect this cable. But because it's having glue and we don't want to replace it, we are going to leave it the way it is. So I'll just put back my 4 screws. Just put back my 4 screws here. Screw number 1. Screw number 2. Screw number 5. Yes, please. Not yet. 30 minutes. Screw number. Now, if we may bring back our keyboard after, of course, cleaning, and in case we are replacing, we can always put it back. So we have to ensure that we fit in the motherboard very well. But before we do that, we need to first unscrew the hinges. This left hinges, because remember, this hinge is the one that covers or holds the motherboard family from the SIM card SIM card tray area. So we need to first also unscrew it so that we have access to that layer, or rather location. So let's proceed by removing screw number 1 and 2, then through here. Oops. Then now we can remove or rather open the hinge so that we can have the motherboard fitted in very well. So once we remove the hinge, we can then remove all the connection wires up, lift them up so that you can have access to the area where the board sits. So let's remove this connection cables also, and then this one for the CMOS battery, then this one for the SD card reader, and then you have to be careful that you don't lock any connection wire down. You don't lock it down. So we have these ones also over the board. Then we have these ones also put over the board. Then we have this over the board, this and this over the board. So cross check and see that all the connecting wires are fitted over the board. Once we have confirmed, we can then put back our screws. And in order for you not to get confused, these screws have arrows. Like for example, this one has a white arrow that shows you where you're supposed to insert the screws, so that you don't misfire and put where it's not supposed to go. So I'll start with this one, the screw number 1. I'll go to the second one, which is here, screw number 2, to make sure that the board is held firmly. I'll go to screw number 6 here, screw number 7, screw number, what's the number? That's screw number 3. We go to screw number 4, which is this one. We go to screw number 5, which is where does this go? Where does this go? Screw number 5. Oh, we first get the big one, which is screw number 5 here. Screw number 5, screw number 6. So the last one goes here. If you look closely, there is a mark that shows you M2 by L3, which is the size of the screw. So that's where you put it, in case you've not kept track of where you put your screws. So once we are done with that, we can then put back our hinge, and also put back the screws. We'll put back the screws that hold tight and firmly the hinges. Once that is done, we can then get another item. And this time around, let's put the speakers back. And for the speakers, we can put them back in their position. Be careful with the cable. It has its pathway where it's supposed to pass without any interference. So you follow that trail and put the wire into that exact path, so that when you put the base, or rather the case, it's not affected in any way. Just put it back cleanly. Just like that. You have to do it gently so that it doesn't so once we are done fitting it in, we can then put back the screws, and starting with this side, you can put the screw back, screw 1, screw 2. They all have 3 screws, and we go to screw number 3. Ensuring that they are fitted in well, we go to the next one. So in case you want to replace your speakers, this is how you can always replace your speakers. So we put this back, and then this last screw back. So once that is done, we can then put back, or rather connect back our cooling system. Connect back our cooling system into its position. We start by tightening the first screw, then we go to screw number 2, then we go to screw number 3, screw number 3 here, and then number 5. So we tighten them, ensuring that they're all fitted very well. So once that is done, we can then go ahead and connect all the connection points. We can go ahead and connect all the connection points, starting with the coin cell battery, which is the CMOS battery here. Connect it back to its connection port. We connect this back also. The one for the sub card reader, rather the media card reader, ensuring that it's fitted very well. Once that is done, we can then proceed to this other one here. Ensure that it's fitted in very well also. We have this one for the fingerprint reader. That's the FPR. Pull it back. Then the speaker connected also to the board. We have it connected to the board. Once that is done, we also connect the cooling system, or rather the cooling fan, onto the board. Once that is done, we connect we connect the power. We connect the power line also into the board. Once that is done, we then connect the VGA, rather the LCD connector. Connect the LCD connector onto the board also. Then the USB connector also, ensuring that it's fitted in very well. So once that is done, we go ahead and put back our wireless cards. Starting with the big one. They have power cords, so this color is connected to of course there is a color arrow that you are supposed to follow. So we connect the aux to the aux and the main to the main, following their color codes. Then we have this one also that we need to have fixed. We have it fixed also back. Then we get the screw back. Once that is done, we also connect back the aux connector, and then we have these ones also connected. Once that is done, we then connect this connection point also. So you have to be super careful, because any slight mistake you can end up damaging the connection ports. Then we connect this one also. Back. So once that is done, we can get our memory module and have it fixed back into its connection slot. Then we have our M2 solid state drive also connected back onto the motherboard. So in case you want to replace, you can always replace it. Replace it. So once that is done, we can then put back our batteries, but before we do that, we can then flip and put back our battery. Oops, this one goes the other side. Start with the small one. Oops. Start with this one. This one. Then we go to this other side. This one has 3 screws, which we are to put back. that is done, we can then put back our cover gently. And then flip open the side to put, or rather replace our keyboard. So right away we connect the connection cables onto the connection ports. Once that is done, we can then flip it back inside the keyboard so that we can have access to where the screws can be fitted. And right away we tighten these screws. Screw number 1, screw number 2, screw number 3, screw number 3. Then we have screw number 4 here in the corner. Then we have screw number 5. This one's got out when we were opening, or rather removing the keyboard, but we got to put them back. We have to put them back. So this is the 5th one, and then the 6th one. The 6th one. So once that is done, we can then cover the screw areas. We can then cover them up. Once that is done, we can then switch on the power cord. And this one has no power, so let's see that we charge. Let's charge a little and see